Welcome into the Full Tank with Phil YouTube channel. And once again, we are talking trucks. That's right. In this video, we're going to be going over the 2025 NASCAR Truck Series best future bets for the season. We're going to do some quick hitters and get through this here. But before I do, if you're looking for some Cup Series action, be sure to give the podcast a follow. Full Tank with Phil, wherever you get your podcasts. And our season preview episode is up there as well. We've got Daytona around the corner, so keep your eyes peeled, or ears peeled for that next week. And also starting a new show on YouTube this year, sponsored by Win the Race. We've got Ryan Stevens, Tino Patino, and myself in the draft. That premieres next Tuesday night on YouTube at 8:30. So give Win the Race a follow on Twitter and YouTube so you can catch that show. It's a new show. Gambling talk, fantasy NASCAR talk. It's going to be a fun conversation every week for the Cup Series. But we're talking trucks. And if you're watching this, most likely we are within 1 week from the first truck race of the year, Daytona, on Valentine's Day. It's going to be a doozy. And so, yeah, it's rapidly approaching. So we want to talk about some futures. That's why we're here. The best bets for the Truck Series futures market. Now, say this. You're going to have to shop around the books a little bit. I'm going to mention some bets at the very end that were available for a while. And right now, for whatever reason, in this moment in time, as I'm recording, the markets have kind of been taken down. They're going back up. They're down, up. Very confusing. Not sure why, what's going on behind the scenes there. But we'll talk about some of those that aren't available at this moment in time at the very end, just in case they become available again. But we'll get right to it. We're going to start with some over-unders. We're going to go through 3 drivers, over-unders for their win totals this season. And then we'll talk about the championship market as a whole quickly, and then talk about 2 long shots, okay? Because that's what we're trying to do this time of year is pick out some longer odd drivers there. So let's get to it. And we're going to start at the top of the board, folks. Top of the board. It's Corey Heim. And the thing you got to know about these win total markets for the Truck Series is that they are very juiced. And normally, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, the Truck Series podcast we've done the last couple of years, you know that I'm not usually a big fan of laying the juice. But from a future standpoint, when I truly believe in something, I'm fine with that. I like having these futures out there all year long because maybe I don't take Corey Heim in a regular week because he's so short on a week-to-week basis, but I know that he's racking up those wins for me in this futures bet. So minus 140 on Caesars, over under 4.5 wins. We're going over for Corey Heim this year, and I'm not really that scared of it. Why? Well, let's just look at Corey Heim last year. He came out of the season with 6 victories, 6 wins. He had 14 top 5s and 18 top 10s. That's only 23 races. So the percentages there that he's, finishing really well, just through the roof. 6 victories in 23 races. And he is losing Christian Eckes in that field, who was his biggest rival last year. And, that's 3 or 4 wins off the board right there. Now, there'll be some other guys who most likely will take those wins, but you have a driver like Corey Heim who has been so dominant through not just last year, but the year before, where he really broke through. And he's coming back for another full-time year. That was the shock of the offseason for me. I mean, he's getting a lot of looks from the other series. And so for him to say, no, I'm coming back, driving that 11 truck, this is huge, huge. So I don't want to be on the other side of this. If you were to try to fade this, the number is just not good enough. It's like plus 120 or something like that. No, thank you. I want to be cheering for the best driver in the series. And I don't think this is really even going to be close. If it was 5.5, I think I would still take it. So to get 5 wins this season for Corey Heim, I'm all about it. Like I said, Eckes leaving. Yes, there will be some drivers that pick some of that stuff up, but those wins, those races where he, vacated, it's the fact that he's been so consistent, and there really isn't anything that would lead me to believe there's an end in sight there. So the fact that Couple years ago, he was in Phoenix just cruising and ended up getting knocked out by Carson Hocevar. Okay, comes back hungry. Then this past season, just couldn't get it done. You had Ty Majeski, kind of sneak into the championship or sneak the championship away from him. He's hungry. He clearly wants to walk away from the Truck Series with a championship under his belt, and I love that. So that 11 truck, Corey Heim, they are going to be a factor every single week as the stats show. And I like, even though the juice is there, minus 140, I like this over 4.5 for Corey Heim. So we're starting off the gates hot. Let's go under. Okay. Let's kind of tone it down a notch here. And, this is, I never like betting unders on guys, right? It's stressful, A, and B, I don't particularly like fading drivers, especially drivers that are likable and drivers that I like. Rajah Caruth fits into that mold. He is a driver that is extremely likable. I enjoy watching and cheering for Rajah, but when the numbers kind of lead me into a certain area, I can't deny it. I mean, you bet with your head, not with your heart. So betting with our heads here, Rajah Caruth under 1.5 is really the way to go. It's at minus 150. I get it. But if this number, I was shocked to see Rajah's number at 1.5. I really don't understand that because he really surprised me in particular, like at Vegas last year, wins the pole, wins the race. I was shocked by that. So then it's so early in the season, you're like, wow, Rajah's due for a breakout. That didn't really happen. He finished the season with only 5 top 5s. And let me see here. Yeah, 5 top 5s. Not really what you would expect after winning so early in the year. So, yeah, he had some good average start positions throughout the season on various racetracks, and it's good to see a truck that's good off the truck, right? Fast in practice, fast in qualifying. But he just wasn't really able to build on that win. Now, he pointed people to death, and there was only 7 drivers that won a race last year. So, yeah, I mean, he was one of them. But even if he didn't, he would have been in the playoffs because of how he was able to be consistent. But I see Rajah making the playoffs due to points. I don't see him winning 2 races. I think 1 is a tall ask, right? You could say, all right, well, he's going to be going back to Vegas where he dog walked the field. Did he dog walk the field? I guess, winning from the pole, that's great. But if you remember, Kyle Busch had serious troubles in that race. And I'd imagine he's going to be back at Vegas riding in a truck ride in that race again. So let's not just automatically assume that Rajah Caruth is going to win Las Vegas. Like that is not an obvious situation there. So it makes me a little skeptical that he could get 1 win, let alone 2. So that's the reasoning for Rajah here taking the under 1.5. Like I said, I don't like taking unders, but to me, this makes a lot of sense as a gambler. And the fact that we can even have 1 victory and we still aren't dead in the water here, 1 victory, I'm fine with that. So Rajah Caruth, go ahead, get you 1, get in the playoffs, but don't win more than 1. We'll be happy with that. All right. Last driver here for the over-unders here on these quick hitter future talks for the Truck Series. We're going to go to our current champion, Ty Majeski. Now, let me tell you a little story about Ty Majeski. A couple of years ago, I threw probably at the time the biggest future bet that I threw on any NASCAR bet on him to win 1.5 races. And he was juiced all the way down to minus 200. Okay. And he let me down. It was devastating. So you would think that I'd be like holding a grudge. I can't do it, right? You got to bet with your head. His problem has always been not finishing races. They struggle as a team. They struggle, or he struggles as a driver, just connecting the dots. And last year, he got the monkey off his back there, kind of winning multiple races, including the championship. So not only did he get the monkey off his back from just like winning multiple races, but he wins a championship. So now he's coming in just with all the confidence in the world. 2.5 wins. I mentioned Christian Eckes not being in there anymore. that's going to open the door for the likes of Ty Majeski to really step up. So can he win 3 again? Absolutely. I think Ty, if he didn't win 3, that would be a very disappointing season for this defending champion. I mean, just looking at some of the stuff here, his short track data is unbelievable. He's, you got Lane Riggs, but it's Ty Majeski that is really the guy. Every time we go to those shorter tracks, kind of the second half of the year, it is Ty Majeski. Absolutely. So if they can get out of their own way, right? Hit their marks, not make mistakes, 3 wins should be a cakewalk. And the other thing about it is we learned a couple years ago, or I guess it was the beginning of last year on the All Things Go podcast. Shout out to our friend Derek Yoder. He had Ty on and they talked about how their engineer, they didn't have one. And he was graduating. They had him lined up. He was graduating from like Purdue or something like that because of ThorSport being located out in Ohio. They don't really have a lot of engineers just like ready to go, right? So you get guys out of college. Well, they had their engineer basically after the All-Star break, and that's when they came alive. They had their wins after that. So even if they start slow, is my point here, I'm not stressing this future bet because if that is still the case, right? If their engineer moves on to Carolina and they got to hire somebody else new out of college, if that pattern repeats itself, I'm still fine with it because of how they came alive at the end once they had some more guys in the shop, more qualified people in the shop. He wasn't his own engineer, as he put it on the podcast. So Ty Majeski, I'm very much into this over 2.5. I think the defending champ has just all the confidence in the world. And he's someone that could really take over the Truck Series and be that big time rival with Corey Heim this season for sure. So there are other win totals out there, right? We've got some new faces. We've got Daniel Hemrick in the Truck Series. We've got Chandler Smith in the Truck Series. They were so juiced to numbers that I just couldn't get behind because we haven't seen them in a while. So that's why we're relaxing off of those. But I think 3 is a good amount. So now let's transition to the championship market. And like I said, we're looking for drivers who are further down the list. Yeah, we could take the drivers that I just mentioned, Ty Majeski, Corey Heim, Chandler Smith. Daniel Hemrick was one that was interesting. Earlier in the offseason, he was listed at like 15-1, and we juiced it down. There was a lot of folks in the gambling community. I got a little piece of it earlier on. I'm not giving that out now because his number's down to like plus 650. And that is now at a point where it's like, let's wait and see. Okay. But at the longer odds, that was worth it. So I think we pump the brakes on some of those guys. Maybe Grant Enfinger at 9-1 could be worth your time, but that's not where we're going on this clip today. I want to go further down. All right. So let's start with a past champion. And I'm sitting here looking at Ben Rhodes at 18-1. Now, you've heard of even year Joey Logano, right? That's what we were all talking about last season. And it came through yet again. Well, Ben Rhodes has an odd year Rhodes situation going back to 2021 and 2023. I can't even speak. And now we're going into this season, another odd year. It would be odd for him, but I think we can expect a bit of a bounce back. Ben Rhodes, he is a Truck Series lifer. He's not looking to go and get into a Xfinity ride or a Cup ride. This is his livelihood. And you factor in the situation that Ty Majeski won the championship for their shop. Just great momentum all around, right? So back to back for that team, it's good stuff. So I have reason to believe that race shop is going to be able to get Ben back to where he was. And we've seen it before, winning a championship, kind of a downer year or not being able to pull through and then winning the championship. 2023 kind of came out of left field in the playoffs, sneaking into the championship 4 and then winning a crazy championship race, winning the championship in a crazy race. So yeah, looking at Ben's numbers here, I just want to say that this is someone that deep down in the field, when you start looking further, you finally land on him and he's a name you could trust. So it is not out of the question, right? He snuck into the playoffs and finished 9th in the season standings. It was just a bad year. If he wins one race, great. He's locked in. Like I said, 7 race winners last year. That's not a lot. So wins a race. Now you're really locked in. You get those playoff points. You get into that round of 8, and then anything can happen. And then as we saw in the Truck Series the past couple of years, championship race, all bets are off. Because that's what you're trying to do with these championship futures. It's less about who is going to win, and it's more about, can you get a player in the game, in the championship race, with a great ticket? Because then you've got options at that point in your season. You can look at what these drivers are on race day and kind of make sure you can walk away with some cash. So if I can get a Ben Rhodes in the championship 4 with an 18-1 ticket, that is something that's not outlandish. It's a driver that we can trust for the most part, more so than some of the other guys on that list in his area, and, feel confident about it. So bounce back Ben, we'll see if he can make that happen for us here in a longer shot championship pick. And then the last one, this is where you're really going to have to hold on to your butts a little bit. I'm really taking a swing on a driver that is unproven, younger, but I see potential here for it. And again, trying to just make it to that championship for it. Caden Honeycutt, driving the 45 truck. This is, last year my pick like this was Jake Garcia. Jake Garcia let me down big time. So it's a lawn dart here. We're just throwing, stuff at the wall here. But Caden Honeycutt, if you're looking for someone further down, is worth a sprinkle. Okay. Let me pull out some of the stats that I have here for him, because it is interesting. He ran a part-time schedule last year, 14 races. So, just kind of getting his feet wet last year. Now he's driving full-time. But in those 14 races, he had 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s. And where he excelled is intermediates and short tracks. And that is a perfect foundation for a driver in this area, a younger driver coming up, right? Because what I would not really prefer is someone who's great on road courses, great on super speedways. That's not what I'm looking for if I'm trying to take a championship flyer. I like the guys who are good on the cookie cutters and the short track packages. And he was able to show some talent on those types of tracks. Kansas, he raced both Kansas races last year in the Truck Series, 4th place in both Kansas races. So that's huge. Perfect. I love to see it. Charlotte, he was 7th. Martinsville, he was 9th. Phoenix, the championship race, he finished 7th. So just really good stuff. And here's the other thing. In his 14 races, 9 times he started inside the top 10. 9 times. 0 of those were inside the top 5. So where I'm going with that is, if this team, obviously I'm not on their race team, but if they just focused on saying, hey, we were pretty good here off the truck with this kid, if we could get faster in qualifying and practice and then set him up even better in the race to start top 5, the world is your oyster at that point. And then it's simple progression. So I'm getting a little bit more in the weeds than I wanted to here for Caden Honeycutt, but I think, I'm kind of making my case here. There is a foundation that was laid last season for this driver and that truck team to be successful and potentially even get a win. Kansas, we go back to Kansas, they could be there. So championship odds, like I said, get to Phoenix, where he finished 7th last year, get to Phoenix 22-1. I'll take it, because if he does win a race, if he does shock the Truck Series and win a race earlier in the season, this number poof vanishes. So Caden Honeycutt, little flyer. I understand I'm getting a little out there, but that's the fun of these conversations and these bets in the off season. And hopefully, let me know what you think. Hopefully you're riding with me, but let me know in the comments if you're down and if you got any other future bets. Now, I will say something to keep your eye on. Caesars had a bunch of markets for the Truck Series futures. We're talking the most I've ever seen for Truck Series. Right now, they're not there anymore. I don't know why, as I said at the top of the clip, but keep your eyes peeled between now and Daytona. see if they open back up. We're talking exactas, quinellas. We've got parlays that they pre-made parlays to finish top 10 in the season standings. And that's where I want to start, because I was on the back road with my buddy Seth, and he on that show called out a plus money, plus 105 for Grant Enfinger and Daniel Hemrick to both finish top 10 in the series standings. And I absolutely love that. I jumped on it. It's been sitting at plus 105 since the show, so it hasn't moved. Once it comes back up, assuming it does, look for it. That is a great bet, because essentially, because 10 trucks make the playoffs, you're saying, will they make the playoffs? Yes or no? They both have to hit. But if one of those two drivers miss the playoffs, that would be big news. So keep your eyes peeled for plus money on Hemrick and Enfinger combo to both finish top 10. And then the other one that was a little bit more out there, it was minus 125 for over 4.5 Chevys to finish in the top 10 in standings. And my reasoning for that was we had Chevy drivers that will point people to death. Tyler Ankrum, Rajah Caruth, as we mentioned. You've got Hemrick coming in. So, Chevy drivers, even if they're not winning a million races, they can make the playoffs, and that's what we're all about. Then it's only one Toyota that I see making the playoffs, and that's Corey Heim, unless something shocking happens on a super speedway or something like that, where Gio Ruggiero comes through and he's just an absolute lights-out driver. But from where I sit, Toyota only has one real driver. Maybe Stuart Friesen comes back to life. I don't know. But we'll stick with that. And then it's how many Fords are going to make the playoffs. That's the key for that Chevy bet. So Chevy has done it the last 3 seasons. So that's why I was onto it, over 4.5 Chevys to make the playoffs in the Truck Series. So keep your eyes peeled. And if you see them, let me know. And give me a follow at Full Tank Phil on Instagram and X. Whenever you want, hit me up. I love to talk shop. So good luck. Make sure you get your bets in. Place them now before Daytona, and then we'll sit on them all year and talk about them as the season goes on when things progress. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.